Hey, what's up? I'm Billy Martin, and today we're going to do a beat making tutorial. Thank you guys for checking out my YouTube channel. If you don't already, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and like and comment on this video. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what kind of beats you want to hear from me in the future, the types of tutorials you'd like to have me do, different techniques I could show you. I'd love to hear all that stuff from you. So today I'm going to take my beat called Alchemy, which I'll link below so you can hear the finished beat, and I'm going to break it down and we'll go through my thought process when I'm writing a beat, arranging a beat, sound selection, why things work together, why things don't work together. I'm probably not going to go too in depth on the mixing today. I plan to do another tutorial while I go through my mixing process in detail just to sort of show you how I do it. So yeah, let's get into this first one. I'm going to play a little bit of the song and then I'll break it down for you. As you can hear, the main sound of this beat is an acoustic guitar. That's how I first wrote this, was coming up with a guitar idea, and then I just looped the guitar and built the beat around it. I'll show you guys what I did with the guitar. So I recorded this with a Takamine acoustic and a Shure KSM32 microphone. It could be different for everybody. That's just how I chose to do it. And if you're not a guitar player, there's a ton of great loops out there that you could find, really cool acoustic guitar loops similar to this. So for those who are into guitar and are interested in knowing how to play it, I'll break down what I played. So I started out with a C major shape. I took the same shape and I slid it up to a D, and then the last chord is an E minor. So it goes something like this. That's it. So let's go ahead and break this down. So I'll start out by soloing the guitar track. Okay, so use one of my favorite plugins on here, RC20. Right here I've got one of Illmind's presets on here. If you haven't checked that out off Splice, Illmind has a new RC20 preset pack with a bunch of really great sounds on there. So that's something to put on here. The first thing I did was a little bit of EQ. Cut out some of the lows. Brought in a little bit just for some warmth. Some of the low mids right here. Cut out some of that sort of like 1.5K sound, and then boost a little bit of highs just so you could hear the percussiveness of the acoustic. A little bit of light compression. And then you saw my RC preset. I got the magnitude a little bit over half, so it's not as much of the effect. You're just kind of splitting that between your original sound. After the guitar, I think the next thing I brought in was probably this lead sound over here. I'll take off all the plugins and I'll kind of show you what this sounded like. It was just sort of a really basic synth lead sound, but I wanted something a little bit more unique. This sound comes out of Massive X, their newest one. Balloon Time is the name of this one. So first thing I did, again, I used a little RC20. I kind of wanted the guitar and synth part to sound like it was a sample, so I wanted to use the same preset on both of them just to give that cohesive sound. So that's the first thing I did. Next, I'll put a little bit of distortion on it. Native Instruments has this distortion plugin called Dirt, which I'm a big fan of. It's really nice, easy to use. Okay, so then here with the EQ, I took all the lows out. So we've really just mostly got maybe from about 1K up, plus a little bit of a cutoff here. Just you don't really need any of those lows in this. I also felt that it was too bright, so I put a little auto filter on just to cut out some of the highs, which really helps set it in the mix a little bit. A little bit of delay on there. And an auto pan just to kind of bring the lead back and forth between the speakers, just to give some excitement, some movement in the track. So we can hear these two together. And this is the first thing I did here, was just this guitar part and this lead. As soon as I put these two parts together, I felt really strong about it, that they complemented each other really well, and then I knew this would make a nice loop to build a beat off of. I wanted a little bit of variation, so I took the same chords, instead of plucking them, I strummed the chords. So if you hear at the very beginning of the track, the same chords just strummed through with all the same effects on them. Kind of felt like an intro, and then it builds up to the picking. Just so you can hear some variation there. I also put some pads in over here. Sometimes pads is nice for texture. When I think about a beat, I usually think about it in three different sections. You've got your main sound or your chord progression, you've got your lead, and then you've got your texture. That's usually how I like to try to break things down, and that helps make sure everything's covered and you don't have too much going into your beat. So here you can listen to these pads. I'm just playing the same chords that I played on the guitar. For this I used Omnisphere. Open this up for you guys over here. And let's see. Okay, Distant Memories. That's the name of the preset I used on here, in case you guys like this one. Took out some of the lows. Use a stereo imager here just to make sure you get a really wide sound. And my favorite reverb plugin is this Round by Native Instruments. It's kind of a new reverb plugin for them, and I've been using it on everything. It's really, really nice sound. So that's pretty much it for melody. You've got the pads, the guitar, and the synth lead, and after that, we'll bring in some drums. So I'll take each thing out one at a time and we'll bring it in. Usually it's kind of nice, I think, to start with a hi-hat, because that way it gives you the vibe of whether you want half time, double time, just to sort of give you the vibe of your beat. So you can listen to my hi-hat pattern here. I usually do all of my drums in Machine. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Machine or not. So I'll use this right here just to build my beat. And then after I have all my beats set like I want, I bounce each sound out individually as a wave. That way I have more control over mixing and stuff. So I'm not going to show you that. From here I'm just going to go through the waves and just break them one time. So you've got a hi-hat here. Then after that I usually bring my clap in, just to sort of, get yourself on time, and then kicks. And we've got a little tiny snare, just as sort of like a percussion element, and we got a couple other. We've got an open hi-hat and a second hi-hat pattern. So I'm gonna put all the drums back in together, and you should be able to hear what the whole drum progression sounds like that. In fact, I'll solo out the drums a little bit so you can hear them as well. So nothing too complicated. So after we got that, the next thing I would probably add in would be my 808s. Here I'm using one of Nick Meira's 808s. Nick's got really great drum kits. If you guys haven't checked out any of Nick's on Wave Supply, I would definitely recommend checking those out. So with the 808, something I like to do, Neutron 3 Isotopes EQ plugin I really like. So I'll bump the low end a lot, so I'm really focusing in that like 20, 30, 40 hertz category just to really get that low end. Pull a little bit out in the 300 because it's just a range that gets muddy often, and you really don't want your EQs muddy. Kind of medium to heavy compression. I usually go somewhere between 4 and 6 on my ratio and make sure I've got about 1 to 2 dB of compression there. Another thing I really love is Puig Tech. It's got a nice preset over here of sub bass, and this really adds like a nice warmth down in like the low 20 hertz category. Decapitator always just gives you that saturation. A really important thing about saturation to me is that when you're listening on small speakers, like through an iPhone or through your computer speakers, if all your 808s are really low and subby, you're not going to hear it in those little speakers. So when you add something like Decapitator, it puts a little bit of distortion, slight saturation on your 808s, which kind of helps bring those overtones out in a sort of mid to high range, which actually makes a big difference when you're listening to. Another thing that does this well is Wave's Max Bass. So I usually will bring this back in at the very end. I like to set it maybe somewhere around 200 hertz, and kind of just mix in the max bass volume until you start to hear a little bit more of that low mids on your 808s. It really helps in your mix. So that sort of takes everything in the main part here. And here I use another bass synth in the beginning here when the song first comes in. I thought it'd be nice for some variety to have just a sustained bass note. So you'll hear right here, that's also an omnisphere patch. Hard bobble bass is the name of that preset. I think I may have gone into the LFO and changed it a little bit so it wasn't as wobbly and didn't have much rhythm. I wanted something more steady. Again, on that, I use a lot of the similar presets or plugins that I used on the 808 with the Pooey Tech, the Decapitator, and the Max Bass. I use those on almost all my bass sounds. So that really takes you through all of the main sounds in this. Maybe we could take it back from the top and break it down. Just sort of go through my progression process and how I like to pull sounds in and out for variety. I think that's a lot of young producers make that mistake of coming up with a loop or a melody that they feel really good about. They come up with their drums and then they just loop the whole thing for 2 or 3 minutes, and that's boring. You really need to have parts that come in, parts that come out. Whether you drop your hi-hat out for a little bit, you drop a kick out, drop a snare out, all those tiny little things. When you pull them out, it sounds that much better when they come back in. So, you know, you want to pull things out before the chorus, pull things out throughout the verse just so that it doesn't get too static. So I'm going to go through my arrangement on this just so you guys can see what I was thinking. So we start out with just the pads in the intro guitar, just to give a little bit of atmosphere. My tag, my son did my tag there. Bring the synth lead in here. Now we've got the synth sustained bass. As you can see, like every 4 bars a new element comes in. So here I've got the drums coming in, a really punchy kick. I wanted this kick to come in really strong. And then halfway through I bring my 808 in, just so again you've got something new that you're introducing to the listener's ear. And then for 2 full bars here, I've got all of everything playing together, sort of like my main chorus sound. The verse, we drop back in the verse. My sustained bass comes in right here. My 808s drop out for a minute. My kick leaves for a minute, and then almost like a re-intro. And then halfway through again, bring the 808s back in. You'll see I dropped the lead out. The lead doesn't play anywhere during the verses. The pads also drop out here for the last 2 bars before the chorus. That way there's a lot more fullness. Okay, drop things out in the pre-chorus. Just snare and a hi-hat, and I sort of have them filtered out, so you just hear some of the lows. The highs are filled out. That way, when it really drops, everything sounds bigger and warmer because your highs that were filtered out in the pre-chorus are now coming back. Got your full sounds, your lead, your 808s, your kicks, everything's playing back together. And I did the same thing for the second verse. Sometimes in the second verse I might add a small little melody sound, maybe pull the hi-hats out different, just tiny little changes in the second verse so there's like something slightly different than the first verse, just for some variety. And that's really it for this beat. Not too much going on. I feel like this is a fairly simple beat. I'll get into all the mixing in the next one, breaking down each plugin, each way I do everything. We'll level the whole mix out at 0, and I'll build it up from scratch and kind of show you the techniques I do to mix a track. Hopefully you like this. Hopefully you learned something from this. If you did, let me know in the comments. Let me know if there's a specific area of this you'd like me to break down and go into detail about, or if there's something I didn't cover in this tutorial you'd like to hear about in the future. Let me know. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you for the next one.